following is a production of Shark Flight Media.
From mechs to mages or agents to argonauts, this is the world of Chris Kennedy Publishing. This is the CKP Future Books Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the June edition of Future Books, where we go over the books that are released each month by Chris Kennedy Publishing. And as usual, our publisher, editor, commander-in-chief, Chris, has taken a little time out of his busy schedule to come on and give us the details of what we're looking forward to this month. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, glad to have you. Boy, the month of June is going to be great for our listeners. We have 5 books. We are absolutely packing this month with releases, and all of them look tremendous.
If there's not something here for you, then I don't know what I can do. Anything from a book from me to Four Horsemen to Last Marines to Brittania. We got fantasy. It's like, oh my goodness, this slate is full.
It's a tremendous month, and without further ado, since we do have 5 books to go over this month, let's jump in with the first book, Assault. This will be book 5 of the Symbiote Wars, and it's written in addition to all the other hats he wears. This book is written by our publisher and editor, Chris Kennedy. So tell us a little bit about it.
Indeed. This is the final book in the Symbiote Wars, or until readers tell me they want more. I've really enjoyed this series. It actually, explores what happens if you had a symbiotic relationship with another race. And the way it works is that race can augment your powers. Mm-hmm. So basically, humans get to become superheroes, for all intents and purposes. They can make you, stronger, faster, any of those kinds of things. So it's sort of a superhero book wrapped up in science fiction. And it's a lot of fun, I think, anyway. I went through it and made myself cry, made myself laugh, reading it, doing the final review. So she was like, "Are you crying?" No, I'm not crying. There's onion powder in my office. Yeah, that's it.
Well, that's great, and this has been a good run with the Symbiote Wars. That was one of the first book series where the books have come out pretty much back to back to back, and I think this has been a tremendous series for you.
Yeah, thanks. I like I said, I really enjoyed writing it. I've enjoyed reading it after I finished it, so it's been a lot of fun.
The question I haven't asked you that I've asked almost every other writer that writes for CKP: are you a pantser or a plotter?
Oh, I am definitely a pantser.
Oh, okay.
I have plotted, in doing books with other people. Sometimes you have to plot at least a little bit.
Right.
And I've written with David Weber, who is the king of all plotters. He writes 200,000 words to write a 100,000 word book.
Right.
So, I have plotted. I can plot. I have a lot more fun as an exploratory writer. Read as pantser. I know where I'm starting. I know where the ending point is, and the journey is just as much fun for me as hopefully it is for the readers.
So you let your characters tell you their story.
I do.
Well, that's
and sometimes it's surprised me. There was a time in the Theogony when I was writing, and I had this one guy, and he was a good guy, and he was a good guy, and he was a good guy right until he wasn't anymore. And then one of the good guys was a bad guy, and no one was more surprised than me. I was like, "Wait, I liked you. What? Oh man!" So.
That's funny. But I'm surprised we've gotten through this many episodes without me asking you that.
Yeah. Definitely a big time pantser. Right now, writing with Marisa Wolf, and I said to her the other day, I'm like, hey, I know we were going to do this, but this is better. Let's do this and this and this and this. And she's like, okay, I guess I can unkill that person that I just killed, and we can reset to that. And she's like, you're right, though. It is better.
That's funny, and that's going to be released on June 6th. That's the first week of June.
Assault is yes.
Yes, Assault is going to be released on June 6th, and that's going to be in the Symbiote Wars universe, book number 5. So if you're reading the series or you haven't read it yet, this is a great series that doesn't have a huge backstory, and you can read through the whole thing pretty quickly. A great vacation series.
Absolutely. It's time to go to the beach, and you'll need a good beach read, and here you go.
There you go. Then on June 10th, we're having Kosche's Madness. This is in the universe that was created by John Osborne, the Milesian Accord, but unlike the Milesian Accord books, which primarily had English, Irish, Scottish, Norse supernatural beings in it, this new author of ours, H.Y. Gregor, she explores Slavic supernatural creatures. And this is book 4 in her, and I can't pronounce this, so I'm going to let Chris say it.
Vechnaya Saga.
Vechnaya Saga. And she has come on strong as a great new author with CKP.
She absolutely has, and this is a really neat series. This will be the last book in this series as well, until readers tell her that they want more. And I've had a lot of fun reading them because I didn't know a lot of Slavic mythology. So there's been a couple things where, she's talked about a creature or, the head baddie or something like this. And I've looked them up because I wanted to know more. It's really engaging and brings you in and makes you want to, get into the universe more. So it's very cool. Great book. The entire Milesian Accords universe has done really, really well. And this is is another great entry into it.
Yeah, my favorite kind of book is the books that I read where, even though they're a fiction book, they refer to a non-fictional character or a god or a goddess from a particular
pantheon,
and it makes me want to know more about them. Larry Correa is the best at that when he wrote his Hard Magic books.
Yes, absolutely. Love that series.
I fell down the Browning rabbit hole really quickly.
I did too. I'm like, oh wait, I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. Oh wow, need to learn more. Must know more. So
if you're into mythology, supernatural beings, this will be a strong recommendation for you. John Osborne set a great universe, and it's relatively unusual. You see it a lot in science fiction, but it's relatively unusual to see a universe that's shared between authors in the fantasy world. So I'm really glad we're doing this.
Yep, absolutely. Great series.
Then this is a book that I particularly am waiting on. On June the 13th. We get to know more about Snake Atwater. And for those of you that aren't familiar, Snake is in the Prince Hazard series. He is the spy master for the Prince, and throughout the series so far, it's been hinted at his past and what made him so effective, and we are getting a book just on the character Snake, so I'm super happy about this. That's going to be on June 13th. Tell us a little bit about it.
Absolutely. It, basically goes into where he got the nickname Snake, and a number of other things, and shows you some of his background. This is the first book in what'll be the Chronicles of Brittania series. which will, explore some of the side characters. Fred's had a lot. Fred Hughes, the author of it, author of the Brittania, Prince of Brittania, has, people have asked him, hey, we want to know more about this character. We want to know more about that character. And, he's always wanted to tell some of these stories. He just hasn't had enough time. Now, this one's being written by Alex Rath in addition to Fred. So Alex did a lot of the heavy lifting, and that let Fred get this out faster. And so he's really happy with it. And is looking forward to telling more of the side character stories.
Yeah. I've spoken to Fred several times over the years and did exactly what you said. Hey, I'd love to know more about Snake, or I'd like to know more about this character and or this world that these characters came from, because it's unusual and I'd like to know more about it. And he said, well, there's only one of me. And I'm like, well, there's a ton of other authors at CKP, and it certainly works for Four Horsemen, and I think it would work for you too. So I'm really glad to see that he's opening up his worlds and
he took your advice.
Oh, I don't know if he took my advice, but I'm personally very happy to hear more about these characters that are so fascinating that we followed for the last 3 or 4 years.
No, absolutely.
Then on June 20th, William Frisbee, one of our more prolific authors and one whose Last Marine series started off with a bang and just keeps getting more and more momentum. I think it does very well overseas as well as here. He's coming out with his 11th book, Operation Seraphim. And I know people are looking forward to know more of what's happening with the Last Marine. So why don't you give them a little taste? Sure.
When last seen, the Last Marines had kind of defended Earth, but all of the bad folks that are coming through the portals are still there, and now they have to try and come up with a lasting solution, because if there's one thing that everybody knows, it's even though they won that battle, they have not won the war, and the bad folks are going to be back. And when they come, it's going to be pretty awful. So it's time to go out after them and see if they can find the final solution. Bill went ahead and wrote the entire arc, which is books 11 through 14. So we'll be releasing them about every 5 weeks apart. So you're not going to have to wait long to, jump in and find out, what happens next. They'll be coming out every 5 weeks, like we like to do at CKP.
I would say that the majority of the readers of CKP books probably have a fondness for military science fiction, and Bill has done a great job with The Last Marines, and if you're a fan of military science fiction and you haven't read any of these, once again, this is a great vacation pickup for you. You've got enough there that it should last your entire vacation to get through, and they're exciting. Lots of action. Bill Frisbee's a great writer, so I would strongly recommend the series to you for your vacation time.
It's totally authentic too. Bill was a Marine, so he's writing from what he knows. It's not somebody that gets things wrong because he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right.
He absolutely, gets it right. You feel the camaraderie between the characters, like would exist. So it's a great series.
Yeah. So that's going to be on June 20. So be looking for it. And then we're going to wrap up the month on June 27th with a new Four Horsemen book by Hampson and Medlock. It's called This I Swear. And this book here wraps up a long arc in the Four Horsemen universe, the Phoenix Initiative. It's the last book, and then we'll start looking for what happens next for our Four Horsemen friends. So tell us a little bit about This I Swear.
Absolutely. Not only does it wrap up the Phoenix Initiative, it also wraps up the 4-book Rogel series that Robert Hampson, many of whom know him as Speaker, and Sandra Medlock have written. I actually was in one of them, but the last several have been all, the two of them. They have, done a great job with the Rogel. You will see things in here. We're at the end game of the Four Horsemen universe, and the truth is coming out all over the place on what's going on and who's on first, what's on second, all that. So there are lots of things going on here that will play into the final series. So if you kind of put the Four Horsemen universe aside, too many books, whatever, you're going to want to jump in here and find out what's going on and get ready for Exodus, which is the last series, which will start, in July. The first book, Shades of the Past, is by Marisa Wolf and I, and that'll, like I said, kick off the last series. So if you've put it aside, it's time to jump back on that horse and get ready for the wild finish.
Well, this will wrap up the month. This month has 5 great stories, 5 great novels, many of them in long-running series that many people follow. So I think this is the best way. The best way to have a June where a lot of people are on vacation. We have 5 good books for people to take and do their beach reading.
Absolutely. Like I said, if you can't find one to like in here, then I
our
really
books
can't.
probably aren't for you if you can't find something in here.
Yeah.
It crosses the entire pantheon of what we write and what we put out.
Absolutely.
I wanted to take just a minute at the end of the podcast to tell everybody that when you're looking for something to read, when you've read, you've caught up with your Four Horsemen, you've caught up with your Heroes of Brittania, all the series, and you're looking for something to read, and you've got a Kindle Unlimited account, or you buy ebooks through Amazon. If you will look usually in the upper right-hand corner of all the covers of any of the CKP books, you're going to see a logo. Kind of looks like a bird. It's a mythological creature, but you'll see it there. That tells you that that's a CKP book. And I remember when I was growing up and going to the bookstore, I'd look for that Bain logo, or I would look for the Del Rey logo, and those were the books I pulled out first and read the blurbs to see if that was a book that I wanted to read. And we would like to encourage our listeners, when you're shopping for a book and you don't have a particular title in mind that that's only what you're looking for, look for that CKP logo, because you're going to get a quality product. We put it there so that you would have something to look for that stood out, and you knew it meant quality. So I'd like to praise Chris for doing this. I think this is a way to give our readers something to look for when they don't have something particular. They just know they want something good to read. So thank you, Chris.
Oh, absolutely. A wise man once told me that, you needed to brand your books so that people could find them easier. And that's what we went ahead and did. And I think it's working out great.
Well, I appreciate that. And like I said, I think this makes a lot of sense. I know nobody can read every single book we release, but if you like what you've read in other books of ours, this is an easy way for you to make sure that you're buying books that have that same flavor. And
absolutely,
we just wanted to point that out to you this month. Chris, do you have anything else that you want to go over with this month?
Nope, I'm good.
Well, I think I'm done too. So I want to thank you once again for taking the time out, and I look forward to doing this again in the month of July.
I'll see you then.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the first half of the podcast. This month, I am truly honored. One of CKP's most prolific and beloved authors has agreed to come on and talk to us about the book that's being released on June 20th, Operation Seraphim. This is the 11th book in the Last Marine series. The Last Marines being one of the most popular series of any writer that writes for CKP, and we're super interested both in learning of what prompted Bill Frisbee to write the Last Marine series, and then drill down a little deeper and talk about Operation Seraphim and what's happening in the series and where he sees it going in the future. Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, we are truly honored. Like I said in the intro, you are one of the most loved authors that CKP publishes. The Last Marines has been widely accepted since the very first book came out, and we're at book 11. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about the Last Marines. What led you to write the first book, and then what universe are we in? What's happening with this group of characters?
Well, I wrote the first book because I'm a Marine and I like Marines and Marines in space. I mean, who doesn't like that? So that's kind of where it started off. But then it's like, what do people like to read? And that's where it got interesting.
Right.
So the Last Marines, basically, it's about 4 United States Marines from the late 20th century, 2095 or something like that. And they get Buck Rogered into the 25th century. And there's a lot of tropes and stuff that kind of play into things. Mm-hmm. And you've got these 4 Marines, say they're going off to Europa and their ship gets hit. They get stuck in stasis and they come out of stasis, almost 500 years later, and everything's gone to hell. There's a fascist regime in charge of humanity. And if that's not bad enough, the universe goes through stages. And it's about to go through a stage where it comes close to other dimensions. And monsters and creatures come from this other dimension. And they end up being called the Van Hat, which is a Viking term for ancient ones. And it's happened before in the past. And now it's happening again. And it's just the beginning stages. And that's kind of what kicks off the series. Mm-hmm. Is the Marines coming out of stasis and they start to encounter these Van Hat, these monsters that are starting to, surge back into the universe, and it just goes downhill from there. Yeah,
if I remember correctly, and it's been I can't remember when the first book came out, but it's been several years ago when I read mm-hmm. the first book. I believe they hook up with the version of the military that exists 500 years after they went into stasis, mm-hmm. and the way that they want to fight war is completely different than these Marines that have been asleep for 500 years.
Yeah, so a lot has changed, but in some cases, not much has changed. So 500 years in the future, you've got this oppressive regime, but then, like any repressive regime, you're going to have rebels and stuff like that. And they fall in with a bunch of rebels.
Right.
And these rebels are, the best way to put it, Vikings in space.
Okay.
And they came from the Scandinavian countries. They went to their planet, and then the governance, the social organizational governance, which is the jackboot thugs of the series, they didn't like that, and they tried to take over the world. And then these Vikings, they fled in outer space in massive city ships called Homestars.
Right.
And then ever since then, they've been trying to avoid the governance, and the governance has been hunting them down. And that plays a lot into the entire series. In fact, one of those Homestars is very central to Operation Seraphim.
Okay.
But the Homestars and the Valhalla Republic, those are the Vikings, they've lost a lot of their culture mm-hmm. during, when they went to the stars. But now with the social organizational governance, they stepped back and said, okay, well, that's not working for us. We want to rekindle our own culture. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of emerged. They've looked at their culture and they say, okay, you know, we were Vikings once. We had the Icer and we had the veneer. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to grasp our heritage and make it, you know, our future.
Okay.
So they're very Viking themed. So you got the Icer, which are ground troops basically, and the veneer, which are like the Navy, the Space Navy, and they don't always get along. But the Marines, when they come into place, they team up with a special operations group, right, like Green Berets for the Icer, and they team up. And one of them is called Scotty. Of the Marines, you've got, you know, 4 Marines. You've got Gunnery Sergeant Matheson. He's a senior individual. He's a hardcore, you know, if you think of Heartbreak Ridge,
right,
you know, the Gunny and Heartbreak Ridge, that's like Matheson.
Okay.
He's an older guy, but he's big. And then you got, I think everybody's favorite, Private Stathis. And he's a young guy, and he is a troublemaker. He's always going back and forth with the Gunny. He was so fun to write. And he still is. And then you've got Sergeant Levine, which is, you know, he was Stathis' squad leader.
Right.
And he's kind of like a third character. And then another kind of central character is Winters. And she is a beautiful blonde Marine. She's not a Marine Raider. She's not special operations. She was actually a shuttle pilot. Right. That survived. So you've got these 3 special operations Marines and a shuttle pilot. And, you know, they link up with these Icer that are led by this big blonde Viking woman, or not blonde, but red-haired Viking woman named Scotty. Okay. And a lot of things happen. Cool. And that's mostly book 1. Right. And overall, I usually write in arcs. Okay. So you had the first arc, which is the Van Hat. And the way that works is, you know, arc 1 was Van Hat. They meet the Van Hat, and, you know, I'm not going to go into great detail on that. Yeah, don't give away any spoilers. Oh, no, I won't. That's we're on book 11 now, so, you know, but in the first 6 books, they encounter the Van Hat, and then they end up back on Earth defeating the governance. Okay. And that's where book 6 ends. Now here, like I said, we're on book 11. Right. But the second arc is basically Mother Earth. Things revolve around Stathis and a couple other characters, Admiral Winters and the Gunny, and a lot of things are happening on Earth and around. But that second arc, Mother Earth arc, ends at book 10. Okay. Now, the interesting piece on that is that this arc, the Angel arc, as I call it, actually started in book 7. So the beginning of book 7, Stathis is talking, and he's saying, you know, I'm leaving Earth to save the human race. You know, so I started prepping for this third arc, starting with the 7th book. Right. And just led up to it, and then book 10 ended, and now I'm starting the third arc, which starts with Operation Seraphim. And book 7, you're an older guy like me. You know Star Blazers, right? Right. And Battlestar Galactica and all of those. Right. So there's a lot of kind of, if you're familiar with those, and a lot of this is really going to jive, and you might pick up some of the, I guess, Easter eggs that I put in things. Right. And paying an homage to something that influenced you when you were much younger. Exactly. So if you listen to Stathis at the end of, at the beginning of book 7, you know, he's talking about, you know, we're leaving Mother Earth to save the human race. And that's like the Star Blazer song almost. So, but that really ties in at the end of book 10 is when you really understand what he was talking about. Okay. Now, also in that, and I haven't seen anybody pick up on this, but the Musashi is a dreadnought. Okay. And the Musashi is central to book 11 through 14 to the third arc.
Yes, and this is the colony ship that they're on, correct?
No, this is actually a governance dreadnought.
Yes.
No, it becomes an AI.
Okay.
But the Musashi is a dreadnought that's owned by Thog, the governance, and then when Matheson takes over the governance, it kind of like falls under his command, but it's like one of the biggest ships in the governance.
I see.
It's not a battle star like what the Republic has, but it's a large ship designed to fight deep behind enemy lines. So it's perfect for this mission.
Right.
But the history on that is, going back to Star Blazers, if you've watched Star Blazers, in Japan, the main ship was called the Yamato.
You're right.
All right. In the U.S., they changed it over to the Argos.
Right.
Right. Now, the Yamato was a battleship in World War II. It had a sister ship called the Musashi.
I did not know that.
That's where the name comes from.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then I think there was a third one, the Shinano. Musashi was sunk. The Shinano was converted to an aircraft carrier. But the thing with the Musashi, it's a sister to the Yamato.
Right.
From Star Blazers. So I kind of worked that in there.
That's pretty cool.
It's kind of like a homage to Star Blazers. And I mean, you'll pick up some of that throughout, but it was a lot of fun to implement that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Musashi is, like I said, the dreadnought, but it was built by a Japanese colony in orbit around Jupiter.
Okay.
So it's also crewed by primarily Japanese crew.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it's fun in that regard. Now, stepping back, so that's, you start to understand in book 7, I set the stage for book 11, which is they're leaving Mother Earth to save the human race.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of book 10, what happens is you've got Matheson. He's been infected by a virus, and that virus is going to kill him and his implanted AI unless he gets help. But nobody can help him. So they put him into stasis, where he's pretty much there throughout the next arc.
Okay.
Me and Scotty, and just, I don't want to do any spoilers, but Scotty stays behind in Earth, and they with the Van Hat coming into the universe, what they have to do is they need to find allies. The human race is getting slaughtered. They're losing on every front.
Right.
There's also another threat that appears in the second arc called the Collective. So, stepping back a little further, when Matheson and the Marines were in stasis, on their way to Europa in that 400 or 500 year period, back on Earth, humanity, the United States, developed AI.
Mm-hmm.
And they started, they developed it when the Marines were there, because all the Marines got implanted AI assistants.
Right. The little, there's the SCBIs.
Yeah, the Scoobies.
Okay.
And so they were implanted with these Scoobies, which is like bleeding edge technology. But they're in stasis when the rest of the United States, they start to implement AI and stuff like that. But then the Civil War breaks out, and Earth is devastated in the Civil War. And it comes out later that the AIs had a rebellion. There was an AI rebellion, and the nukes, all the nukes going off, were designed to wipe out the AI.
Okay.
And the governance claims that we did it. They said, oh yeah, we wiped out the AI to save the human race. And, so the governance is very anti-AI. But in reality, it was a civil war, the AI fighting each other. And there was an organization of AI that survived that called the Collective. And they play in very heavily into that second arc. Because they're starting to come out of the woodworks too, just because they're realizing that humanity is a threat.
Right.
And it's just humanity's getting hit from both sides. You've got the Van Hat on one side
and the Collective on the other side.
Yeah, so it starts to get messy.
And then you got Watchers out there also.
Yeah. So the Watchers are no spoilers, but they're watching. And one of the things I need to do when I do an arc, because there's space in between the arcs, is I need to put in a recap, basically. Here's what's happened.
Yeah, up to this point.
In this case, yeah, and that's where the watchers come in. So they're watching things, and they set the stage for the end of the book. So if you look at what they're talking about, it'll make a lot more sense at the end of the arc. In this case, it's going to be book 14. And the arc is written and it's ready to go. I'm just going through right now. I'm finishing up edits on book 12.
Wow. So how far do you see this series going? Or until people lose interest, or do you have a definite stop point in mind?
I don't have a definite stop point in mind. I've gone to 14, and one of the challenges I see at this point is keeping things relevant and looking at the reader feedback.
Right.
So one of the things I've seen is, people really like the Marine interaction. Zale Stathis and the Gunny going back and forth and the old people jokes and stuff like that. And I think that's what sets the Last Marines apart from a lot of other series, is you've got the interpersonal actions. You've got the people are people.
Yeah, I think that people read series
one thing
because
I really focus on.
Yeah, I think people read series like this because they fall in love with the characters. You've got to have a plot. You've got to have something happening. But what keeps people coming back and buying book after book after book is because they want to keep that relationship with whichever character really speaks to them.
Mm-hmm. And The Last Marines is a wide cast of characters.
Oh, yeah.
So, you've got Matheson, you've got Stathis, you've got
Scotty, you got...
Then, you've got a whole crew. Some of my favorites are, Matheson and Stathis, but also Sif, oddly. I didn't really expect to find her that interesting, but she's kind of grown on me. So
I take it from that statement that you're a pantser more than a plotter?
Yes. And what I do is I know how I want it to end, but I have no idea usually how I'm going to get there.
And you let the characters take you where they're going?
Exactly. So, it's the characters that do a lot of the deciding. I just throw them in the meat grinder and find out what comes out. And it's usually pretty interesting.
So, what does the rest of your year look like as far as being an author?
So, finishing up this arc.
Right.
And then I've got several other projects. I need to take a little break from The Last Marines and kind of let the next arc percolate. Usually the easiest way to end a series is to kill everyone off.
I don't know if John Ringo would agree with you.
Yeah, well, I kind of like happy endings myself.
Yeah, John tried a series where he killed everybody off, and he ended up with 8 or 9 people left out of a whole battalion, I think it was, and people still want the rest of the story.
Yeah, and that's going to be a hard part. It's like the last book, number 14, is called When Angels Fall.
Okay.
That's not ominous. I don't know what is.
Yeah, that title could be a precursor to what's about to happen.
Yeah, and bad things are happening throughout the series. In book 11, Seraphim, Operation Seraphim, is just kind of the start of the arc. And if you follow the arcs, things start out and then they kind of go in all these different directions. And then at the end of the arc, they all come together in this one big battle.
Right.
At the end, where all the pieces come together, and everything starts to make sense. And it's the same situation in this third arc. Ending with book 14.
Yeah.
All these things are coming together, and you have to wonder how they're going to get out of it.
Right.
But I know.
So, for the listeners and readers who love The Last Marines and want to make sure they don't miss anything and get to know ahead of time when stuff is coming out, are you very active on social media?
Yeah, I try to be. I've got a Last Marines Facebook page. I can't say I check it every day, but I do make an effort. And then I've got my author page, and William S. Frisbee. But I try to be active there.
And that's WilliamSFrisbee.com?
Yes.
Okay. And he spells Frisbee Frisbee. So WilliamSFrisbee.com if you want to interact or see what's coming out or see what he's working on, to stay aware of what's going on with the Last Marines and whatever he uses as an aperitif between the Last Marines and going back to them if he decides to take a break from the Last Marines, just to let things percolate, as he said earlier.
And I do have other projects on the books. One is a series featuring Commissar Fang, Colonel Commissar Fang. He becomes very prominent in the first 10 books. Mm-hmm. He is one of the governance political commissars.
Okay.
He's a very interesting character who ends up being an ally of Matheson.
Okay.
And throughout the whole series, it's like, do you really want to trust this guy? But I've got another series, and I'm on book 2 of it.
Uh-huh.
Is his start, basically. He's, how he got recruited, how he became a special agent of the governance, and how he became a special operative.
Oh, cool. That sounds
and
really.
He was an ODT, an orbital drop trooper.
That sounds really good. That sounds like that's going to be super interesting. I think bad guys in general are people who you think are bad guys, but have a strong moral compass and really don't care what other people think about them. Are some of the most interesting characters that you can come across in literature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Fang it's a dark series. It's very, very dark. So it's kind of, I don't know if I'll release it anytime soon, because like I said, it is dark. Colonel Commissar Fang, the governance is not, they make the Nazis look like nice guys.
Right.
And he grows up as a very loyal officer. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see his character arc go from a very fanatically loyal member of the governance,
right,
to the commissar that basically has Matheson's back.
Yeah. So he's peeked behind the curtain.
Yeah. He knows exactly what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's even with Matheson, in the future, and the guy is like 200 years old,
right? Because
they've got, anti-aging treatment. Even in the future, he's not something, I don't know if you can call him a psychopath, but he has a very interesting approach to things, and he's not above using nukes.
So he's one of those characters where other people aren't really real to him. It sounds like
they don't start out real to him,
right?
Because he comes from the political class, and it gets into the formation of the governance.
Mm-hmm.
And in the governance in the series, you've got several different factions within the governance, but primarily it's the Chinese and the Russians. And this kind of goes back to the Cold War and communism and stuff like that. They're kind of friends, but they're not. And he was a son of a very prominent CCP party member.
Okay.
And so that's how he started. But then, things happen where the social organizational governance absorbs China as a vassal state. And even, hundreds of years later, you still see a lot of conflict between the Chinese and the Russians, which are the primary rulers, if you will, of the governance.
Well, if history's taught us anything, the worst thing any group of people can do is to try to absorb the Chinese. It usually does not work out well.
And there's a lot that goes in that story, and you have to wonder if his parents are traitors or patriots or what. But that's one series I'm working on, and like I said, book 1 is written, and that's him just basically being recruited as a 17-year-old and he goes to Russia, and this is during that merge. And he becomes an orbital drop trooper, which are some of the elite in the governance. And they're very, very tough individuals. And he becomes a drop trooper in book 1. In book 2, he becomes an officer. And in book 3, he becomes a special agent. And I want to tie that in with Scotty and Sif.
Okay.
And so all three of them have had their paths cross. And you see that throughout the 10 books. You know, there's a big operation called Operation Haberdash, and they all talk about it. It was terrible. And, you know, the government calls it one thing, and, you know, Scotty calls it, or the Republic calls it Haberdash. Mm-hmm. And just a lot of things happened during that time.
So you can write books from the perspective of each one of them, all telling the same story, but they're completely different stories because of their individual points of view. Is that correct?
Yeah. So all three of them, you know, it's their point of view, and what'll be fun is they don't encounter each other because they don't really meet until the last Marines bring them together.
Oh, okay.
But they all have a piece of the pie, you know, and they're all fighting. Scotty and Fang and Sif, they're all involved in this operation, and that's called the government calls it Operation Razor, and even the collective is involved in it. So there's a lot of moving pieces in that.
Well, I certainly hope that you get a chance to get them all written and get them all released. That sounds like a great break from the main line of the Last Marines, and give you something really fun to write also. So is there anything else that you want to tell people that we haven't touched on, or anything else that you want to say?
Read the books. More's coming.
Read the books. More's coming.
It goes to 14.
Yeah. And you
11, 12, and 14.
Yeah, you seem to be a fast writer also, because your books come out on a regular basis, which is really refreshing. It's not, you don't have any of the George R.R. Martin in you.
Oh no. But I usually do not start releasing until I have the arc written.
Oh, that's cool.
So the arc is written. I know exactly where it's going. And like, for instance, with this arc, I know where it's ended. So now I'm just go back and I start putting in pieces and tips and just little Easter eggs and stuff, so that it all comes together at the end.
Well, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to do the interview today. And like I said, Last Marines has gotten tremendously good reviews. We're at book 11. People in general love it. It seems to be well liked here in the U.S. and overseas, so I can't recommend this series enough to you. And June 20, we will have the book 11, which is Operation Seraphim. And as you've heard through the podcast, there's a lot more to come. So this will be a great series to start over the summer, over vacation, and get caught up on, because you know that there are several more books coming in the series. So I strongly recommend that you purchase it. Bill, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the CKP Future Books podcast with host Randall Willis. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving it a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you subscribe. Show likes and channel subscriptions are also much appreciated on the CKP YouTube channel. Finally, if you'd like to know more about this author or others on the CKP roster, visit chriskennedypublishing.com. Thanks for listening to the CKP Future Books podcast. We'll see you next time.